Welcome back, everyone. So the word is getting out to vintage Miata owners that I'm the guy who can hopefully make your original OEM stereo not only work again, but also work with your smartphone so that you can actually send audio directly to the stereo without any fiddly adapters or any no bullshit. It just connects as if you had a factory Bluetooth option in your car. I'll talk a little bit about that in a second. So these are two stereos that were sent to me by the same customer. He wanted me to potentially repair both, but if that isn't possible, use this one for parts for this one, or whichever one was best. He let me decide that. So while I have these two stereos side by side, I want to talk about the differences between the two. So as far as the interface to the car, they're exactly the same. They have the same features, same specs, same functionality. The only difference is one of them is a revised version of the other. Can you tell which one's newer? No, you can't. I'll tell you. So cosmetics aside, this stereo has already been partially restored. I'm waiting for new belts for the cassette deck before I can put this one back together. Let's talk about this one for a minute, and then we'll go on to the differences. So this is, of the two stereos, this is the one that I found to be the most viable. It was in better condition overall. Both of them had dead cassette decks and dead CD players. One of them had slightly better screens than the other. This one had better LCD displays. They weren't as destroyed. So this one already has all new lamps, so some of the lamps are burned out. One of the services that I offer is I will completely replace every lamp in the display, and that's been done on this one. I also, again, I add Bluetooth. This is the Bluetooth module that I add. It is an integrated piece. It goes straight into the amplifier. It works as if it were installed by the factory. Basically, when the stereo is powered on, this is also powered on. If you connect your smartphone to it, it will switch the audio from the tuner, when it's in the tuner mode, to itself. So it just goes right through where the tuner inputs into the amplifier, into the preamp. That's where this connects. So when it's off, when the smartphone is disconnected from it, either manually or automatic, or if the phone's turned off, a relay switches so that this is in bypass mode. So the FM audio from the tuner goes straight into the amplifier. When this is turned on, when it's linked to your phone, when you press FM or AM, you will hear nothing but silence until your phone starts playing audio. That's how it works. It's pretty slick. I've done probably 6 of these so far successfully. One of them in my own car, and it sounds great. I've had a lot of happy customers with those. So let's talk about the differences between these two stereos, and then we'll get on to the guest of honor. That's the one we're going to look at today. So I'm glad I have these side by side because I just want to point out a few things. So for the 93 model year, this is the stereo that you're going to have. For the 94 model year, it's going to be this one. Here are the differences. The advance reverse button has 3 hash marks on it. Now this one's kind of worn out, but those 3 colored hashes correspond to the 4 input options. FM and AM are tuner, therefore they're blue. Orange is CD, and green is cassette. And this just tells you that, oh, hey, I work for all 3 functions. Tuner, CD, cassette. It was a useless extra step that they had to send this particular part through to be silk screened, additionally. Same with these buttons down here. And as such, they probably decided to save a few cents per unit by not having it go through the second pass or the additional pass for silk screening. So in 94, yes, these buttons are backwards. I will fix that. For the 94 model year, they got rid of those hash marks, and you will no longer see them on the control buttons. So if you've got a 94 or a 95 that has these colored dashes underneath those buttons, chances are your stereo has been replaced or may not be original to the car. Vice versa, if you've got a 93 and you've got these buttons here, there's a possibility that your radio has been replaced, possibly as a warranty repair or an afterthought repair. Now, let's look at the back of the unit. That's where the differences really start to kick in. And this also highlights why some internet advice, although well-meaning and well-intended, may not be correct. So on my stereo, now I've got a 94 with this stereo installed, and this is the one I've got. Do you see the difference between the two? I'm kind of pointing it out for you. Do you see the difference? Okay. The 94 dropped the Pioneer universal input plug that goes here. There's a jack. It's this one right here that allows you to interface Pioneer accessories, such as, I believe there was an auxiliary input module. There are CD changers and other random things that can be plugged into this head unit, but not the 94. It doesn't have that plug. Completely different amplifier board. Similar layout, but it's not the same board. They're not interchangeable. So I found. They may be, actually. The 93 also has two of these jacks. Now, this jack here, I believe, provides power and lighting signal. Lighting power. The other one, I believe, it does a few other things, but it also has an audio input and possibly output capability. So this does quite a few different things. It's like the jack on the back of the Miata Panasonic stereos, which plugs into the CD player. It's kind of a similar function. It provides power signal, audio left and right, in and possibly out. It also does a few other functions, system mute and different things. Another thing I want to point out with these radios is like the Panasonic stereos, it will not produce audio unless, I think there's a jumper plug that goes here or something like that. This stereo will not produce audio if the body sonic amplifier is not attached or plugged in. It will not produce audio. It'll power up, it'll light up, you'll hear the cassette tech move and the CD player move, but it will do nothing. It will not produce audio. I think there's a way you can make it do that if you jump some of these pins here. Because this body sonic amp becomes the new audio output source. The speakers actually plug into here rather than here. That is to say I think it's that is correct. That is correct. So, and it goes without saying that this is your body sonic transducer. The in-seat thumpers plug into here. And that's what that's all about. So this radio is almost ready to go. It's just waiting for new belts. I've had it playing for a while last night, just playing CDs and cassettes. And, it sounds pretty good. I hope the owner is watching this video. Maybe, maybe not. But this one's going to be going out soon. This one's going to be going back home with it. I'd like to maybe buy this radio from him, but I have enough junk. This radio is actually salvageable. It just needs displays. Both displays are heavily damaged, and you can see that green spot right there. That's an LCD leak. So what's happening is the panel itself is separating internally, and there's nothing you can do about that. This one has LCD damage, but it's not as severe. I'd show it, but I'd have to plug it in. I don't want to do that right now. There's a cassette stuck in this one, so this one, Needs cassette deck belts. It needs a CD player that doesn't... CD player is not functional, and that's because it's low on power. We can fix that. I fixed this one. I didn't do it on camera, but I just dialed up the lens power, and I'll show you on the next unit we look at if it has the same problem. Dial up the lens power on it, and we can get the CD player to function. In order for the CD player to spin, it has to be receiving an actual response from the laser diode. It's looking for a focused beam. If it doesn't see a focused beam, it will not play. It won't even spin. It won't even get that far. Okay, let's clear the bench and take a look at this one that just came in. It's really interesting. We'll talk about it now. All right, so let's take a look at this radio. Now, this one here came from out of this country. This is actually a Canadian radio. Okay. So how exciting is that? It's pretty exciting. It's a Canadian radio. All right, let's see what we can do here. Ooh. So this one has all the typical hallmarks of a sensory sound system that you will find. All of them. Literally all of them. So you've got the finish is failing all over the radio. Completely failing. The buttons, the knobs, they all need to be repainted. But they're there. That's important. They're actually physically here. I've gotten them where they were missing. And getting replacements is... You basically have to scrap an entire radio to get knobs. So that's not fun. We'll power it up. Let's see. So this is a 94 model. This likely came from a car similar to mine. I'm going to actually ask for the details, like what model the car is, or what options it has, because I'm kind of curious. All right. Does it have leather? Does it have cloth? I think most of these came in cars with leather interior. Let's see if she powers on. Okay, we got some lighting. We got barely anything from the clock. So see what kind of bulbs we have out here. So it looks like at the first glance, we've got lights out on the displays, on this display at least. When the power is coming from the accessory side, you're going to get at least an illuminated clock display at a minimum. And let's put the light on it. Let's see if we can get it. So we got a little bit of damage here. I might have another one for her. I'll have to look at my stockpile. Now this is quite interesting. This is the first time I've seen one. Oh, maybe not. Hold on. Let's get a better look at her. Okay, so the transflective, the anti-glare finish is gone on both displays, completely gone. This is very typical. This is normal. This is your yeah. This is just how they come. This is how they come when I get them. All right, let's turn it on. Looks like the buttons are in good shape. We're not missing any real. There's no coating missing or paint missing or anything like that. This is good. I'm feeling this one. This one's going to be good. Turn it on. Okay. So lower display looks perfect. In fact, it's got good lighting too, but that's okay. First thing we're going to do with this radio is change out all the bulbs, displays, and buttons. A little scratchiness on the mode select. I have a fix for that. Not a big deal. At least they work. Stereo wide button seems to work. Okay, this is where the rubber meets the road. Does the cassette deck work? All right, so let's see if the CD player works. I've got a nice Kazumi Watanabe CD that I happen to enjoy. Let's see, so it pulls it in. No spin. No spin, immediate reject. That's about what I expected. Okay. Oh, wait a minute. Wait a minute. I made a mistake. This is a Canadian stereo. Hold on. Hold on. I'm sorry. I am so sorry. I really apologize from the bottom of my heart. You are a Canadian first and a Japanese radio second. My bad. Immediate reject. Okay. Well, we know that if she rejects Rush, there's something very wrong. How about the cassette deck? Where is my test cassette that I keep on my bench? Ahmad Jamal at his best. Ahmad Jamal is actually really good. He's a pianist, jazz pianist. Ooh, ooh, it pulls it in. It's trying. It's actually playing. I was not expecting that. Sounds muddy as hell. It reverses. Does it eject? It ejects. So the cassette deck looks pretty viable. We're gonna change the belts in that. Those are on order. They're coming. I'm also doing all the lamps. Those are on their way. I had to order a whole stockpile of them. Let's see if it prefers this a little better. We'll try it. See if it sounds any better. And it's playing, but it's really muddy. So, sounds like it might need a severe head cleaning at worst. At best. At worst. Okay. Alright. Well, what I'm going to do is we're going to get that CD player to work again. We're going to do it here. We're going to do it right now. Start to finish. No cuts. Here we go. Let's see if this works. It's worked on a lot of these. The Pioneers, I'm not too keen on how they're built. I really I prefer the build quality of the Panasonics, if I'm honest. But that's okay, because these aren't bad. They're just not as well built. But here's the funny thing. The Panasonics suffer from a capacitor problem. They used aluminum SMD caps on the CD control boards. And it's those aluminum SMD caps that cause the CD players not to run most of the time. Now, I had one in here that didn't run even after replacing all the caps. So, you know, your mileage may vary. And there we go. There we go. Let's take a look. This thing is pretty clean inside. I am impressed, I'll admit. Whatever car this is in definitely is a garage queen, or has been for much of its life. I can tell because it's in such good shape. No, really, it is. Now, my car, I'll point out, was an absolute garage queen. It was a Sunday driver all its life, and this is what the stereo looked like. Just as bad as this one. I've had some sent to me that were pretty rough. I mean rough. I had one of these that was sent to me from a gentleman in Texas, and it was absolutely it was the worst looking thing I've ever seen, because it definitely sat outside in the hot Texas sun, and yeah, doesn't really make it better. So this faceplate will be a candidate for restoration. I'm going to do a couple of these I usually do 2 at a time, so I can get a little more mileage out of a can of clear. That shit's expensive, let me tell you. That is the most expensive part of this project, is the clear coat finish that I have to use. It's hideously expensive. It's like $30 a can, including shipping. You can't buy it locally. Anyway, so these are the 3 bulbs that are out. These are the 3. We're going to do them all. I've changed the type of bulb I'm using in these. I'm using a lower wattage for the buttons, And I have some higher wattage bulbs for the display. And, well, I'm sorry. I misspoke. They are, so I'm using a 12 volt bulb for the buttons. So a 12 volt bulb running at about 8 volts is what these run at, will never burn out. They just won't. The display, on the other hand, it needs a brighter bulb. So I'm running a 5 volt bulb in the display, and I'm using incandescents. I'm not doing LEDs yet. It's a business I haven't really. Some people are having luck with it. I just haven't done that yet. I don't know why. I'm stubborn, maybe. I don't know. If somebody specifically asked for LEDs, I'd probably try to do it, but I believe with LEDs I have to cut the voltage down. That's why I haven't really done it. I've got to find a way to reliably cut the voltage so that you don't burn the LEDs out. LEDs don't require much voltage. However, the lighting circuit in this radio runs at a good between 7 and about 7 and I have to double check the voltage. But there's two brightness settings: ignition on, lighting on, and ignition on, lighting off. Or I could have just said it simply as lighting on or off. That would be too simple. Okay. So what I'm going to do here is we're taking the CD player mechanism out. Change the angle for you. We're taking the CD player mechanism out, and just watch what I do. You can do this yourself. You don't have to pay me $300 some to do this. You can do it on your own. It's not that hard to do. Undo all. There's a ribbon cable here. There's one over here. Lift the whole thing out. Let's take a look at this guy. One of the things that I've been checking on with these is, when I get one of these in my shop, is I look at the bushings, and I want to make sure that they spring back when I put pressure on them, and they seem to be doing just fine. They're not disintegrated into oblivion. These are actually nice and puffy. This is what you want to see. They return to their position. They're fine. If I have one of these with disintegrated bushings, and I don't have any spares, but I do. But if I didn't, I found a way to cast new ones. I've actually cast some of these in silicone. Not my preferred method, but it does work. Okay, this little trim pot right here. Can you see it? This little trim pot right there. We're going to go ahead and we're going to dial it up a little bit. We're going to use a trim pot. I have a high voltage trim pot adjustment tool. It doesn't have to be a high voltage tool, but that's what I got. And we're going to just go ahead and we're going to turn it about maybe an eighth or a little bit. We're just dial it up just a little bit. I turned it so it was a plus sign. Okay, just give you an example. It was a plus sign, and I turned it into an X. Okay, if you've got an X, turn it into a plus sign, but turn it clockwise. That's how you dial it up. Okay, that has worked, by the way, about 75% of the time. If you've got one of these and the CD player doesn't work, that will get it going. If the problem is a weak laser, which is usually what it is. Now, on the Panasonics, it's usually capacitors. From what I found. That's the limited sample of radios that I've had in my shop here. That's what I found. So, it's either capacitors or it's a weak laser. And in this case, we're going to find out in a minute. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the control boards on the Panasonic stereos in your Miata have SMD aluminum caps, and they do fail. This one, I should have checked that actually. Take a look. Let me show you again. We'll put it back out again. This one, the Pioneers, Panasonics, these use. And it's a good idea, if you're going to pull this apart, definitely check this out. But it uses standard electrolytic caps these guys. And what I'm finding is, unlike the Panasonics, these don't leak as much, if at all. And I'm looking for any like an oily substance around these. If you see an oily substance around these, that's when it's time to replace them. It's probably a little overdue, actually. You're going to see an oily substance, and these look fine. They're not leaking. I'm not changing them. But that would be the next logical step when you're eliminating typical failure points. Your next logical step, obviously, change the capacitors on the control board. We're not doing that here. I don't think I need to. Because I would just, at that point, I have other control boards I can just pull from my parts bin. And what the hell, we'll just use one of those. But we're going to get her CD player working. Her cassette deck is already functional. We just want to change the belts, clean the heads. There's only one head. And, well, it's a double-sided head that flips around. Come on now. Come on now. Get in there. Get in my belly. Come on. You know, the funny thing is, Quebec, where this radio is actually from, it was sent to me international. Quebec is like right next to the state I live in. It's like right over the border. This woman does not live that far from me. I mean, it's far, but it's not like, oh my God. It's like probably a 6-hour car ride to where this woman lives. Isn't that crazy? Oh, man. As a matter of fact, this summer I'm going to be going camping. Well, it's actually not really a camping trip. It's a wedding, but it's right over the border in northern Vermont. Right over the border to Canada. Like, literally, I could just take a little detour and deliver this thing to the poor woman's house. But I don't have a passport. I need to get my passport. Anyway. Now, a couple of things I want to point out while we're doing this, before we start doing the actual work. The time it now, if I'm going to be doing a faceplate restore, that has an extensive turnaround time, and I'm going to make sure she's aware of this. It's going to take some time because I have to wait a few days between each coat, and that's the thing. Okay, here we go. We're going to need to hook up the ground wire. I'm always doing that. I forget to hook up my ground wire. Okay, we'll just slip it in there. Okay, off we go. Okay. Do we have power? Oh, it would help if I plugged it in, maybe. Yeah, there we go. Ah, we got power. We got light. Do we have Geddy Lee? Let's see. Yep. Roll the bones, my friends. Sometimes you might roll snake eyes. I can't turn this up because fucking YouTube. But that's how easy it was to save the CD player. Now, how long will that fix actually last? Well, let's put it this way. It took 30 years for it to get to this point. It's not going to be 60 years, but it'll last a while. I think I think it'll last a good while. I mean, a couple of years maybe, depending on CD player usage. But here's the thing. Because I offer Bluetooth installation, you don't really need to use the CD player. You could at least have it functioning in your car so that if somebody hands you a CD saying, hey, play this, it'll play it. It'll play it just fine. Now, yeah, I mean, that's pretty much all you can really ask for. I would say maybe I'm not even going to speculate. Now, on my own car, I gave it a brand new CD player laser block. That's the lens, the optics, everything. Because I found the parts, and they were really affordable, so I bought them. I put them in my car, and it runs great. Would I recommend doing that to these? No, I would not, because let's be honest with ourselves. Are we going to be playing CDs in our Miatas every day? Probably not. And again, with Bluetooth, you don't need it. Actually, the Bluetooth module sounds just as good as the CD player. Okay, not really. Audiophiles are going to go down my throat for this, but it sounds pretty damn good. That's all I got to say about that. Now, I'm going to contact the owner and see how far she wants to go in. Oh, I want to point this out. So I've got, this is the original. You can barely see that. I wanted to see how this looked on an original one because my replacement decals, they're just as hard to see. So with the light on them, I can't really see it without, so the camera automatically corrects, but my eyes don't as well, but interesting. So even with the original overlays, it doesn't really look that good. Okay, good to know. All right, I'm going to reach out to the owner, see if she wants to replace this. Let's see if I've got one. I think I actually have a good faceplate right here. Now this one is scratched. I won't sell her that one. Let's see what I got. All right, so this is okay. I'll explain. This is the faceplate from an MPV minivan, but the electronics behind it are actually the original control board for my car. That's right. It's the same board, same display. This display has been polished up, but of course the coating is missing. Let's see how it looks on this radio. All I got to do is when I go to rebuild her faceplate, just swap the board into this one. Here's the problem. I only have one of these. I'm never going to get another one. Okay? So if I sell this to her, it's going to cost a little bit. Okay, this one's already had lamps replaced. I'm just going to change out the bulbs on the display so they're brighter. I'm going to use a different type of bulb will make this brighter, and that'll fix that. But that looks pretty good, if I do say so myself. All these lamps have already been changed. So that saves me a little bit of time. I don't have to go back and do them again. It's working pretty good. I ran it through all the tracks. I'm going to let it run a little bit. Let it exercise. I may be dialing it up a little bit more though. Anyway. So let me reach out and catch you guys at another time. One of the other things I'm going to do to this radio, is we're going to take the audio board out. We're going to check for leaking capacitors. I've taken a different approach to capacitors. I don't need to change them. It really isn't necessary. In fact, it's a waste of time, and it's a waste of money and resources. And also, anytime you're soldering on these old boards, there's a good chance that something bad could happen, and it's just not worth it. We're going to leave well enough alone. I'm going to crank it up. We'll see how it sounds. If it sounds okay, it's not clipping at higher volumes and isn't really distorting too badly, then we're going to leave it alone. It's bad enough we're doing all this work to this old girl, and she could fight back if we do too much. Hopefully not. But I did the capacitors on my radio, and after listening to it for a little bit and riding in the car, I found that the sound really isn't any better. Just saying. They weren't bad. In other words, they weren't bad in the first place. If they're not leaking, I'm leaving them the hell alone. They were good quality capacitor in these. That's what they used in Japan at the time. They were better quality caps than what they make today. So I'm going to leave them the hell alone. We're not going to change them. There's no need. I'm glad the cassette deck works. That means I don't have to deal with a lot of buildup on the belts. If the belts melt it's a disaster. So we're just going to change out those belts, clean the heads, and I think it'll come back to life just fine. All right, I'll see you guys in another video, and keep on trucking. Well, I spoke with the owner of this radio a couple days ago, yesterday I think it was, and she has decided to replace the faceplate, so I'm going to be charging her extra for that. I have no more, not faceplate, I mean the display board and control board. So because I have no more, that's it. It means I'm going to have to find another part stereo, or keep an eye out for them. Specifically one that has good screens. That's going to be harder, easier said than done, as they say. So I had to charge her a little bit more than I want to, but supply and demand. I gave her the choice. I said, you know, you can keep the display you have, or we can swap it out with one that's not delaminating internally. And she said, yeah, we'll do that. Anyways, I got, so this person actually called me. I must have my phone number in the signature of my email or something. But she called me from Canada, which was interesting. And we talked for a little bit, and she really does. She really loves her car. And it's people like her that make me glad I'm doing this, because she loves her car. It's a 93 limited edition, which is surprising because, as I mentioned earlier, the differences between the two stereos, the 94 and the earlier ones. But hold up a second. Hold up a second. I want to check something here. The production date on her stereo is not on that panel. It's under this one. Okay, here we go. November 93. Now that's kind of interesting because she didn't have the newer style buttons, did she? Or did she? I don't know. I don't remember. Let's take a look at these for a quick. So this is all of her stuff, faceplate parts. Does she or does she not have the newer style radio? One of these will be an indication of that. Yeah, these are the newer style buttons. Now that's interesting. It must have been like it must have been the very beginning production, because mine was made in about the same time, about November of 93, to be put into a 94 model year. And so she has a newer radio in hers. Either it's been replaced, or they made the changes to the style of the radio. Oh yeah, and she's got, okay, yep, it's definitely the newer model. What am I thinking? I could have just looked at the back. Anyway, long story short, she's got a 93 limited edition, which is the black with red interior. She loves the car. She cares about the car. And she enjoys the car. And she really wants the factory radio in that car, because that's what it came with. People like her are why I do this. Now, if you've got, you know, hell, even a really nice mid-90s NA, or maybe an early NB, and, you know, Miata, or whatever vehicle you drive, you know, whatever it is, whatever, an older vehicle, and you're trying to figure out the cost benefit of having this done versus putting in something like this, you know, clearly this is the better choice. I'm just saying it is. I'll make the decision easy for you. Putting in a brand new stereo like this one, probably your best bet. That's your best bet, because that's cheaper, easier, and it'll have more features. It'll probably even sound better. But if you care about the originality of the car and the appearance of that dashboard, that's why I do this. That's the only reason I do this. For most people, the new Kenwood or Pioneer or whatever, that's your best option. But for everybody else, this is probably what you want. Now, I've already painted the faceplates and the knobs. Let's take a look. Oh, they're over here. Let's take a look at those. So the faceplates, I always do more than one at a time, because I have to. To save cost on clear coat, I have to do more than one. It's not worth it to me to burn up a $30 can of clear coat on one stereo. So I always do 2 or more. If I have more, I'll do more. These came out pretty good. Actually, these came out better than the last couple sets I've done. I'm really nailing my practice of how I do this. I'm getting the process down, and I'm killing it because I've done so many of these. And all the control knobs, I glue them to a board. You can do this yourself if you want to try this kind of thing. I glue them down with hot glue to a board, and this way I can manipulate the board anywhere I need to spray whatever I need to. And there's actually 3 sets of knobs here. I have one, it looks like I have a complete extra set of control knobs. And yeah, there's a full set of 3. And 2 of them I own, the other one belongs to the customer. No, actually, I'm taking that back. There's one complete set because I'm doing 2 radios at the same time. Those control knobs are for this one, which is going to be sent out once I have the belts. And they're going to this radio, which is waiting for belts too. And this one's going to be needing a Bluetooth. I talked to her, she wants Bluetooth on this. So I got to get on that next. Yeah, it's a fun little project. Anyway, that's going to conclude our video. I might do a follow-up later on, we'll see. Until then.